Hello and welcome back to the Balance Sheet. I am one of your co-hosts, Billy. This is my co-host, Raj. We have a very exciting episode for you today. A lot of really cool things have happened in the world of women's wrestling. We've got Blood and Guts, the first ever women's Blood and Guts to talk about. The PWI 250 list for 2025 came out. New champions in WWE, and just plenty on our minds as far as the way women's wrestling is covered. But where we want to start is actually last week. Uh, Raj had a what we both felt was kind of a common knowledge comment that he stated, and we've gotten a lot of feedback and questions about it. So we wanted to take a second to clarify and just give you our stance on it. So Raj, I will pass the baton to you. Go for it.
Yeah. So last week, in discussing our top five NXT matches that you could not use Sasha Bailey Brooklyn, which universally is regarded as the best women's match maybe ever, we both had Sasha Banks versus Becky Lynch from NXT, what is it? Unstoppable?
Unstoppable.
Unstoppable in 2015. One of the great matches of all time. And I made a comment and I said, these are two of my five favorite women of all time. I really hope one day they reconcile. And so, we can get another feud. I had no idea that that little comment would warrant the most feedback we've ever gotten on an episode about something that I said at the end, because so many people either A, didn't know that these two do not talk to each other anymore, or B, they know it, but they were like, well, do you know why? And hey, can you tell me, or can you next week on the pod, you know, um, verify or even expand upon it? And so what I wanted to say is, yes, I made the comment, and I did really think it's common knowledge, but it's also not my place to tell everybody why they are no longer friends. I think that's something for them to discuss if they feel comfortable, because they are both, very famous, very, grown-up adults who, maybe one day want to discuss it themselves, or maybe one day they do reconcile and then they come out together and say, "Hey, we had a bump in the road in our friendship." But yeah, these are two people who I have met as a duo renting a car from my ex-wife. So yeah, like I know how close they were. But again, it's not my place to discuss. We are not a gossip show here. So I just wanted to clarify that. And for everybody out there, I'm sorry I can't like necessarily give you the information I know, because that would be, to me, that's not something I want to do or we do. We do not discuss those type of things. So that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I mean, we know they were close, and um, now they don't seem so close, and it's really none of our business. Nothing will change the fact that they, broke ground together on. This podcast doesn't exist without the work that both of them put in, and um, that's not why we're here. Why we are here is to talk about really this week two things happened that expose very clearly why we do this. um I don't think I ever sought out to do any sort of media thing, and I don't know that you did either, but both of us felt compelled to talk about women's wrestling, look at their impact from a business standpoint, because we continually see people in this space, especially men in this space, discount the impact that women have and have had on this business. Um, on the good side of things, we have a PWI Pro Wrestling Illustrated Top 250 list, which that those voters put a lot of effort into. You and I watch as much women's wrestling as most people. We can't name 250 women's wrestlers off the top of our head right now. Like we couldn't do it. Um, so thank you to that group for shining a light, not only at the top of the list, but all the way down to 250. And what's great about that is that list just 7, 8 years ago was top 50, and now it's top 250. So that's pretty spectacular. On the dim side of the room, where the lights are not as bright as they should be, you have the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame, which was announced this week. And, it's woefully underrepresenting the women, not only of the past, Trish Stratus is not in, but um, you have people in the now like Cody Rhodes is getting in this year, and you have Becky Lynch, Io Sky, and Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné, um, barely getting enough votes to stay on the ballot. So that is a class of voters that's really not updated their thinking. They don't look at wrestling through a updated lens. They're stuck in 1980. And some of them, frankly, I just don't think want to educate themselves because there's no argument for some of the men that are in and or getting more votes over the three women that I just named, the four women I just named. So um, I'd love to talk further about the PWI list, but we're not going to spend a ton of time on the other. What are your thoughts, though, on that Hall of Fame?
Well, so as somebody who, and I might have said this on the show before, I used to subscribe. I have subscribed to the Wrestling Observer newsletter for a long time. I stopped, and then I kind of share it with somebody, but I used to get the newsletter as a kid, right, and as a teenager, and so I remember when he first did the Hall of Fame. I think it's '98 was his first year. And a show I listened to in Toronto called Live Audio Wrestling. I know it's a podcast now, but it used to air on the Fan 590 in Toronto every day, I think every Sunday night at 11 o'clock. And Dave Meltzer, that's where he kind of got a voice. This is before his and Brian's website came together. He used to appear every Sunday night on this show with Jeff Merrick, John Pollock, Wei Ting. Wei Ting came after Big Daddy Donnie. Trish Stratus used to be a host of Live Audio Wrestling. For those of you, that's how far back I go with this show. And I might have auditioned for the show once upon a time to be a host, but that's another story for another day. So I know about Dave for a long time, and I know that his Hall of Fame, in his this is his words, not mine, he believes is the true professional wrestling Hall of Fame. Like the WWE one, he looks at it as fraudulent because they put anybody in. They don't have any checks or balances. It's like, hey, we want an appearance, we'll put you in. And you have the Cauliflower Alley group, but he thinks this is it because once you get voted in, so if you're Bret Hart, you get a vote. So it's not like you've the same group of voters is there all the time. This group has grown exponentially. He brings new writers into it. He brings people from all walks of life who cover wrestling, including wrestlers themselves, into it. So he thinks, hey, I have my finger on the pulse. This is it. The problem is a lot of those voters, what they looked at as a successful professional wrestler in 1998 is not necessarily the same thing as a successful professional wrestler in 2025. I bring up Mercedes specifically because there is still this train of thought that, okay, she was in WWE, they were doing 2 million viewers. Now she goes to AEW, they do 600,000. That clearly means she is not a draw. It's not true because circumstances have changed television markets and ratings and metrics. When Mercedes goes outside of AEW and does a House of Glory show, which we'll talk about, or does a show in Italy, or does a show wherever, their numbers go from here to here because of her. That is, in the truest essence of professional wrestling, a draw. But she'll never get credit for that in these type of publications because the voters look at it as When you were in WWE, you were a bigger star than you are now. You're not a draw. Well, then my question becomes, other than CM Punk, who really went to AEW and moved the needle? Nobody. The one person. And that's because he took 10 years off in one of the most public divorces of all time with a major wrestling company.
Yeah, if that's disqualifying for her, then you got to say the same thing about Moxley and Daniel Bryan, and they're probably already in. I don't. Bryan's
Daniel Bryan
probably
has an
already in.
award named after him. So yeah, he's definitely in. But yeah.
The thing that's crazy about it is this is the analogy when you and I were discussing. I actually believe that Dave wants this to be a real Hall of Fame.
Hmm.
I think that Dave wants this to be the most fair representation of a Hall of Fame out there. Imagine if Steph Curry didn't make the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. And then you went around and you asked all the NBA writers, hey, how did Steph Curry not make the Hall? Why did you not vote for Steph Curry? Yeah, 3-point shot, not really my thing. I'm a purist. I like a post game, and he's just out there shooting threes. Sounds asinine to say out loud, right? Like you wouldn't, you would go away, and if you had half of your voting group more saying that, you'd be like, I need a different group of voters if I want this to continue being a real Hall of Fame. That is what is happening now with the underrepresentation of women in this Hall of
Yeah.
Fame. It is passed by, and it will not be a real Hall of Fame until Dave fixes that. Becky Lynch is the first ever woman to main event freaking WrestleMania. Mercedes Moné and Sasha Banks is the first woman ever to main event a pay per view.
Hmm.
First Hell in the Cell, first one on one main event of WrestleMania. Like the list of accolades are
Yeah.
larger than most. You know how many men in that Hall of Fame that maybe never even main evented a pay per view, but they
Um,
like the way they wrestle.
well, Sabu got in this
Has
year.
Sabu ever main evented a WWE pay per view?
No, he's never
Probably
main
EC.
he's never main evented a WWE pay-per-view, and he wrestled John Cena on a pay-per-view, and he didn't main event. Yes, he's main evented an ECW pay-per-view, but I mean, like, let's be honest here. I don't think main eventing an ECW pay-per-view is as important as main eventing a WWE pay-per-view or WrestleMania. Uh,
Correct. And you know what's funny? The Sabu thing. You have this group of people saying what Mercedes is doing is not important because the wrestling in bingo halls. Sabu just made the Hall of Fame, and I'm not saying he shouldn't be in there. But when you degrade her work, by the way, you're degrading a lot of people's work. Sabu, once ECW went under, spent most of his career wrestling in similar venues that Mercedes is the main event in and drawing a bigger gate than they're used to getting in those venues. And if they were both guys, it'd be one thing, but Mercedes is a woman main eventing, drawing the gate, and main eventing over all the men on the card. And it's not a problem, by the way.
so I
The men know she's the one.
like you, we're big sports fans, and I think growing up, I always thought the pre-steroid era that the baseball Hall of Fame was the best Hall of Fame. Like I always thought that making Cooperstown was like a big deal, but making the NBA Hall of Fame, it's like they let everybody in. It's like you could buy a ticket, you're in the Hall of Fame. The NFL Hall of Fame, I never, it's very prestigious. Of the four sports, it's probably the hardest one to get into.
It is.
And I remember like I have a theory about a Hall of Fame. Any Hall of Fame. It could be football, basketball, baseball, hockey, doesn't matter. Wrestling. If I say the person's name and you have to think about it, they're not a Hall of Famer. So I've done this, right, with friends of mine at a barbershop. I'm like, Shannon Sharp. They're like, Hall of Fame. It took him 3 times to get it. He didn't get in the first 2 times. He got in on the third time because they have this thing with football where there's a first ballot Hall of Famer and then a Hall of Famer, right? So they're like, well, Shannon, you'll get in, but we can't first ballot Hall of Fame you. That's a Gronk. That's a Tony Gonzalez. Now, in my opinion, I feel like he was just as impactful for the position as they were. And he played in an era where they didn't have open spread offenses. Like I think with his athletic ability and his speed, he would have better numbers in today's game than he did back then.
He'd go
But
crazy.
like I look at, okay, so then I now have to understand that the Hall of Fame needs to evolve. So historically, again, he's obviously not a Lions quarterback now. He's a Rams quarterback, but up to this year, forget about this year. Let's talk about pre up to this year, Matt Stafford. On paper, he didn't have a case for the Hall of Fame based on their own history, which is if you never made an All Pro, you never made won an MVP of any kind, blah blah blah. Okay, and he didn't have a winning record. Only Joe Namath, I think, he made the Hall of Fame with a losing record, but he also had three MVPs or two or whatever the number is. But I have to update how Hall of Fames work because the truth is now people take into context different things. Like they look at Matt Stafford's career and they're like, well, he just got drafted by, sorry, no offense now, but back then a crappy organization, right? Like a lot of
Yeah.
people are like, what if Matt Stafford got drafted by a competent organization? Would he be Aaron Rodgers or would he be Ben Roethlisberger or would he be Eli Manning or he's better than Eli Manning, but you know what I'm saying? Like where he had a structure or let's call it what it is. What if he got drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Where Nick Foles has won a Super Bowl. Nobody's ever said Nick Foles is a better quarterback than Matt Stafford, but he had an infrastructure around him where he won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So, people look at Matt Stafford a little bit differently now, and I have to be a part of that. Like I can't just say, "Well, you shouldn't get in because historically you never did because you don't check any of these boxes because we evolve and the criteria has to evolve, like for Dave, like for the NFL, right? And my current quarterback for the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, on paper, when you look at his quote unquote counting stats, he shouldn't sniff the Hall of Fame. But then, wait a minute, 71% winning percentage, Super Bowl MVP, two Super Bowls, only quarterback other than Joe Montana to have 35 points more than once in a Super Bowl. Brady's never even done that. The rushing touchdowns. Wait a minute here. This is a Hall of Fame arc. But on paper, his numbers would never sniff the Hall of Fame. So you have to evolve your thinking. Back to professional wrestling here. The people who vote in Dave's publication, they don't know the impact Mercedes Moné or Becky Lynch or Io have had on a generation of women and quite honestly a generation of men and boys and teenagers that I just don't think they're ever going to be able to quantify it. And that's why I think, her getting 11% of the vote tells me all I need to know. It tells me that they're not paying attention because I could make a real argument that in the last 10 years, there has not been a more impactful pro wrestler, male or female, than Mercedes Varnado. I think I can make a legitimate strong case that in the last 10 years, she has been the most impactful professional wrestler. Lyra Valkyrie, Indy Hartwell, we saw her last night, Nora Diana, um, Roxanne Perez. These are legitimate stars in the biggest company in the world. I'm talking about obviously Roxanne, Lyra, not Nor Diana or Indy. They are main eventing Monday Night Raw because they saw her on TV and thought I could do that. So, which male wrestler saw Cody Rhodes and said, "Yeah, I could"? Because 10 years ago, Cody Rhodes was a jobber. So nobody was like, "Oh my God, I want to be like Cody Rhodes." Now,
Yeah.
from today, 10 years, yes, I think there's going to be a lot of men's wrestlers who look at Cody Rhodes and was like, "Okay, I want to do that." But not 10 years
I
ago, Cody Rhodes.
yeah, and I think it's Cody Rhodes continued the DNA or the code structure of what professional wrestling looked like, and it was going, and he's the plug from here to here. No offense to Cody, but he is Cody could do what he's doing now in 1993 when you and I were growing up on wrestling, and it would have fit. Mercedes, Becky, EO are an update to the code. They're an update to the DNA structure of what successful professional wrestling looks like. Um, the men, including Cody, who's world champion, are largely floundering this year, and there's ebbs and flows. There's not a story.
Yeah.
Be a whole podcast. What does the landscape look like if Cena wasn't retiring this year? Because it's been pretty brutal on the men's side. Um, and a lot of people would tell you that women are carrying the excitement factor of wrestling, right? Evolution was one of the best shows of the year. Rhea and Io are as over as anything, as anyone. Mercedes is crushing it out on the independents. The women just had a fantastic match at Blood and Guts on AEW. So there's a lot of good things happening on the women's side. Take Cena out. The men's side is kind of like, what's working. The women are a irreplaceable part of this business now, and they were not 12 years ago. If
Oh,
the women, if the women were not there now, these TV contracts are smaller, the ratings are smaller, the gates are smaller, like significantly smaller. And that all, a lot of the women have contributed to that, but the boom period, the big bang was the four horsewomen. We didn't even talk about Bailey fell off the ballot apparently a year or two ago. So she didn't even make it to a second round. So this is a group that's just not doing a good job updating their thinking. So the challenge is, Dave, Uncle Dave, if you think that your Hall of Fame should be the gold standard, then you need to take a look at your voting class and either make them educate themselves or bring, probably both, bring fresh blood in as well.
yeah. I mean, not to be too finance nerdy, but it would be like your investment person telling you, that crypto thing, I don't really mess with it. Now, am I saying it's, like any other asset, it's going to have its ebbs and flows, but it's a legitimate thing. And if you're an investment person, you would be negligent not to look at the impact that crypto has had. And I think in this same case that these voters are negligible, or Dave hasn't told them the correct story about why they should be considered. Because, like, to think that they haven't had a big, like, I'm going to use a name, and I know he's not your favorite wrestler, but I think this makes a good point. Can anybody deny that every one of the four horsewomen have had a bigger impact on the business than Seth Rollins?
I No, I don't think so.
Like, I don't think you can argue that in good faith that Seth Rollins is like, Seth Rollins has gotten pushed more. He might make more money, but I don't think 10 years from now anybody's going to remember the boom Seth Rollins period.
It's a great point. If that offends anyone, listen real quick. What Raj is saying is if you remove Seth Rollins from the WWE and he just never happened, how much is it different? Probably not that much different. They would have found someone else to be in the Shield, and you know, it's not whether you think he's a great wrestler or not is irrelevant. He is again. He could have worked in the '90s, the aughts, the teen. But if you remove Becky or you remove Sasha or you remove Bailey or you remove from Charlotte, certainly if you remove more than one of them, the business is vastly different. And if you remove one of them, the business is probably different. It took all four of them, and
And
um,
yeah, and sometimes, when you replace somebody, the office knows better. I mean, the original idea for the Shield, CM Punk said, "I want Chris Hero, Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose." Office
yep.
is like, "No, we don't want Chris Hero. We want Roman Reigns or Joe and no, Anoa'i, whatever. Anoa'i. What's his last name?
NOI.
Anoa'i. Well, the office was 100% right, and CM Punk was 100% wrong. If they went with Chris Hero, not only does the Shield flop, but I don't think Seth Rollins or Dean Ambrose have their careers. So
Yeah.
it's like, Now, and I know now Roman and CM Punk are best friends. They do movies together and they have the same, but back then, they were not friends at all. And, Punk was very offended that, oh, they picked the good-looking guy to be in the group. Well, yeah, the good-looking guy probably not only saved the company eventually, but probably is the reason you came back and making the money you make. And you bring up a good point. The one thing I think women's wrestling has far exceeded the men in a long time is even when they have meaningless storylines, which is a lot of the times, I always feel like their matches are a little bit, not a little bit, they're a lot more compelling because it has more of a real feel to it. If you take away the Bloodline story and the Sami Zayn insertion into that story, I cannot tell you a men's story that has captivated me the way, the Golden Role Models did, the way the man Becky Lynch did, the way Rhea and Io now do, Charlexa. I thought Carmella and Sasha Banks had some really good stuff. Like, I just think the women are better. This is not me trying to get brownie points with my girlfriend who, oh, by the way, would rather watch Roman Reigns than watch any woman wrestle. Number one. Number two, because we are trying to get this audience, we're like trying to be woke or whatever it is. The reality is, I think if fans are honest with themselves, there isn't anything really compelling about men's wrestling in 2025. I think the women across the landscape have carried the business. Now, there's going to be an argument saying, well, yeah, and business isn't as big as it was 2 years ago when the bloodline was the hottest thing, and the business was hotter because men were the focal point or they were the better performers or whatever. Fair, but give Rhea Ripley the same platform you gave Roman Reigns, and I guarantee you they'll do the same numbers. It's not that the women can't hold their place and make those numbers, they don't get the chance. Like,
Yeah,
they never put in that much effort into a woman's storyline.
right. No, and your point about the throwaway matches being more compelling. Unfortunately, the women always feel like they're fighting for a spot, and what's unfortunate about that is because they are, and that's why they're bringing the heat, on a 7-minute match. Uh, Great segue into fighting for a spot, I think. Pro Wrestling Illustrated top 250. We have a new number one. This is a list that has never had a woman win number one twice. And we've talked about it on the show for the last couple of weeks, but Mercedes had never been the number one on this list. She'd been two, three, four, five, and six, but she had never been number one. And she was named the number one woman for PWI's top 250. This is for the calendar year of October 1st of last year through September 30th of this year. So I think we both made it known based on their criteria and the time frame. Pretty much a slam dunk number one. What did you think of her finally getting the number one spot, and B, some of the rest of the list, the top 10 or anything else that stood out to you?
So, first about her getting number one, long overdue. I thought she should have got number one in 2015. And I thought she got robbed that year. I think she was number three behind Nikki Bella and Paige. And so I'm happy that she got it. If you look at the October 1st to September 30th calendar, she should be number one. Remember, after October 1st, 2024, you had two Chris matches and the Hazuki match. I think that, along with the body of work she put together from January 1st to September 30th, with the multiple promotions, with the, getting exposure to women who grew in the list themselves because of their match with Mercedes. The reign, she hasn't lost her title. She lost to one person, and that was the number two person on the
Right.
list, right? Which is Tony Storm. And is Tony Storm the closest to ever go back to back?
Bianca went one and two. She went first and then second the next year and then third the next year. So
Okay.
Bianca
Bianca.
and
Okay.
Bianca has probably the best 3 year run. Charlotte had a 3 year run where she was top three or four, 3 straight years. Um, Maybe I think Charlotte might have had a 5 year run where she was top five, if I'm being honest. That sounds right, right? 15, 16, 17, 18, at least 4 years.
So,
Um, and then yeah, so Tony's kind of right there in that.
okay. My opinion is starting with Tony going to the 10th person on the list. Do you think they got the top 10 right in terms of the rankings and the people?
Yeah, I mean, I made the mistake when I predicted the top five. I think we gave our top six because we knew the top. We were right about who exactly the top six would be. It was open and shut who the top six would be. Um, I got my heart more involved than my head, and I told you this by text. Um, there's a reason why Charlotte was listed higher than Sasha Banks all those years, right? Because the booking was stronger, winning the matches, you know. So you and I both had EO ahead of Tiffany because of what our hearts told us. But by the taking a step back, and what I appreciate about PWI and their history on this is they do try to be very consistent. So Tiffany finished ahead of EO, and it's similar to how Charlotte, finished higher all those years than the rest of the horsewomen. She had better booking for a lot of those years, and Tiffany had very, very strong booking. You've been saying that.
Mhm.
Um, the rest of the top 10, Stephanie got number five for the second straight year, EO in at number six. Um,
Who's
I,
seven?
I'll pull it up right now. I know Rhea was 10,
Okay.
and seven was Athena, which was the highest she's ever finished
Okay.
on the strength of her ROH. Uh, she did great stuff in ROH last year. So I really think her getting some exposure more on AEW obviously has raised the profile. Because if we're being fair, you even said you liked the energy she was able to show on AEW, like in between her and Mercedes, and then leading up to that Tony match. I don't think the producers put their best foot forward on that Tony match, unfortunately. But it was good to see her get some shine in the top seven.
So let me make sure I have the seven correct. Mercedes one, Tony two, Saya three, Tiffany four, Stephanie five, EO six, Athena seven. That's the seven.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I actually think that that is based on their criteria. And that's, I have to keep reiterating, this is not a list of who's the best women's wrestler in the world based on
Right.
my opinion. Based on their criteria, this seven is solid. And
Yep.
I could make a strong case. I think there's two that if they flipped, I wouldn't be mad about. I think if Saya was two and Tony was three, I'd be okay with it.
Yep.
And I think if Athena, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I think if Athena was six and Io was seven, I also wouldn't be offended by it because, I mean, look, Io won the title against Rhea, defended it at Mania, and then was on in backstage segments for 2 months talking about how she's looking forward to her next challenger who never showed up until
Yep.
the next match Io had, she lost.
Right.
The next title
Um,
defense she had in a 2 month window, she lost. So, um, Naomi was 10, right? Naomi made number 10.
no, Naomi was nine. Rhea was
Nine.
10.
Rhea
So
was 10. Okay, so who's eight?
Saray was eight. Naomi was nine. Rhea was 10. I
Okay.
was really happy to see Naomi get some shine. I think she would have finished maybe top five if she got that additional month with the title. But she's got bigger and better things going on right now. So, nothing to be ashamed of. And she's going to come back, and they'd be dumb to not just plug her right back into the momentum she had. She could have the type of booking momentum, big win momentum, and crowd momentum behind her. She could make a run at number one the year she comes back.
Okay. You know this list better than I do. You've researched it. I don't understand how Bailey is number 70. And I want to spend a couple of minutes on Bailey because Bailey was not injured the whole year.
She was
You know,
not.
it's not like she was, off TV. She was in feuds with Becky Lynch, Lyra Valkyrie, Nia Jax. So where did Lyra finish?
Lyra finished very well, 15th.
Where was Becky?
Becky did not qualify. She did not have
Okay.
enough singles
So
matches.
Becky didn't qualify. Okay. So Lyra was 15, Nia was 12, right?
13th.
13. Okay. So Nia's
Liv
13.
Morgan was 12.
So Bailey in this time period feuded with Nia Jax, Lyra Valkyrie, Becky Lynch, Tiffany. She had a match against Tiffany on SmackDown. Bailey has been in the ring with top 15 people the
Two
whole year.
two things two things killed her. No days with the title, zero.
Okay.
And I think she's only won two or three matches the whole year.
Okay. So based
Remember, she was on that streak where she hadn't won.
so based
Um,
on this criteria, it's so do you think 70 is accurate then?
well, it's tough to parse out because you are spanning all of wrestling. Someone said, "Oh, I was surprised Liv finished so high." She won that inaugural
Ah, that's right, the crown jewel title.
crown jewel belt, so that she, essentially in that moment, WWE in that moment said, "This is our top woman," and she got to carry that for a while. So that matters before she got hurt. She was very, very busy before she got hurt. I thought Willow was a little low at 27, but what hurts her, similar as Bailey, is um
Where was
no title wins. But
Mayu?
you was 18th.
Okay.
I think so. Which Japanese women finished ahead of her? Saya,
Mm-hmm.
Saray,
Yep.
and I'm talking about who do their work in Japan.
Yeah,
Obviously, Io was
yeah,
in front
both
of
are
her.
correct. And Suri.
Starlight Kid, and Mayu. So Mayu was fourth on women doing business in Japan.
What about
J-
Azumi
Azumi was too low, I thought, 31st.
and Hazuki?
Hazuki was 83rd.
That seems low
Yeah,
to me.
that is actually, I think, the highest she's finished in a while.
Okay.
Um,
Interesting.
but what is cool about this is um, there are uh, so many women doing work that doesn't meet the public eye yet. So here's one that stands out: Queen Aminata.
Yeah.
On the surface, you'd be like, did Queen Aminata have a better year than Bailey? She didn't win a title in AEW. She didn't wrestle on pay per view. She didn't have feuds like Bailey had. Queen Aminata has been champion in several different independent promotions in the work that she does on the side. So some of that stuff that maybe if unless and again, shout out to the PWI crew for the amount of research they put into this to try to get this list right. Um, Bianca was 56. Been hurt since Mania, so that threw her off. Jade was
And she didn't
50.
have a belt other than the tag belts, right?
She did have well, yeah. You're right. Jade finished 53rd. Her title win wouldn't have been a part of this. The thing with like why a Jade finishes ahead of Bailey though, Bailey didn't even wrestle on pay-per-view for the women's title. She wrestled for the IC title. Jade did wrestle for the women's title on two pay-per-views during this time period and won a Mania match. So actually
If
Jade you could say is a little low because she won a match at Mania.
if I just didn't know anything about the art of wrestling and I watched TV, I would say Tiffany is the number one wrestler for the calendar year in 20 for WWE. She
Right.
had the most wins. She had the most, she appeared on everything. She beat a multitude of opponents. Again, WWE has no one to blame but themselves for EO finishing. If people think EO is low, then WWE is the one to blame, not EO, because
Yep.
they put her in a position to like after the Mania triple threat, they could have legitimately made it a very difficult decision for PWI to give it to Mercedes. If they had just said, okay, Io, from now until September 30th, you're going to go on a tear. You're going to beat Rhea. You're going to beat Stephanie. You're going to beat Jade. You're going to beat Naomi. You're going to beat Lyra. You're going to beat, not Liv. You're going to beat Kyrie. Like they could have literally gone on a roll where she could have literally had like an open challenge every week and just beat everybody. And then, you could have had an argument for her. But the way she was,
Yeah,
you don't have an argument for Io at all. And not
yeah,
even
and
for
and and,
Tiffany.
and people would say, "Who cares about this list? Why would you book around?" We're not saying to book around the list. What you just laid out would have been best for business too, because
Yeah,
EO
yeah.
was
It
super
would have
over,
been
and
great for, I think, the product, and it would have been great for theater, and it would have been great for fans who like women's wrestling, right? Because you would have got so many great matches. But look, the way Tiffany was booked in 2025 is the way I always wanted the aforementioned Sasha Banks, current Mercedes Moné, current number one PWI women's wrestler in the world, booked in WWE. That's how I wanted
yeah,
Io to be booked. Like they booked Tiffany correctly. Tiffany, whether it was too much for her, didn't execute the way that the booking was set up for her. But Tiffany had every opportunity, honestly, to be number one. She
yeah.
had every opportunity.
Um, call off a couple stats, and then we'll get into blood and guts. But
Okay.
a couple of things stood out to me. JC Jane at 11, I thought was really cool. Chris Statlander at
Yes.
16th. I guarantee Chris will be in the top 10 next year. If she's not, Tony fumbled. Again, he shouldn't book to get her in the top 10, but she's at a spot where she should be so good over the next year. She started the year as champion, and she should absolutely be in the top 10. Um, Charlotte Flair at 29th. Um, she made the list. They did keep her busy enough in singles action to make the list, coming off an injury. So, but just overall, there's some really good. If you look at this list, I please buy the magazine. Not because I have share in PWI, but I think we want to show PWI that women's wrestling sells. So I think it's worth it to buy. You could buy the digital magazine for like $7, and you can get a physical copy for 10, whichever you prefer. The list is public out there. Um, I think it's a cool way to say, hey, who is this person? How did they finish, 55th? And, let me look them up and see what they're all about to continue to expand the horizons. Mercedes will have wrestled. This is a great stat. Shout out to DJ Soulbones, who I think listens to the show. He tweeted this morning. 46 days since the PWI period has ended, Mercedes will have had 12 matches in 5 different countries with her belt or a belt on the line 10 different times in the first 46 days of this calendar year. So, can she make a run for the not only back-to-back number one, but just the first woman in general to win number one twice? She's absolutely number one so far this year, although Chris will be ahead of her if Chris beats her at Full Gear like we all think she's probably gonna.
So of the 12 matches she's had, you said 10 are for a title or defending her title. What are the two that aren't? That's more what's curious to me. Like what match, I guess, the tag match
The
that
tag
she,
match and the
yes.
blood and guts.
Okay, so those are the two.
But she won the
Peter,
blood and guts and Chris lost the blood and guts, right?
yeah.
So segue, blood and guts.
She
Chris
blood
and
and guts.
Mercedes didn't win nor lose blood and guts. They were there to go do their thing, heat up their feud. They were not the focal point of blood and guts. And though we advocated for them to be on last week's episode, I really like the way that it came out giving shine to the other 10 women. I think it was AEW Women's Division World Expansion, and I applaud that. What did you think of the match?
Okay, I thought the match was really good. I enjoyed the match. I think that these type of matches, it's I'm not a person who loves to see that much blood and guts and violence and thumbtacks and like I don't need all of that to be entertained by professional wrestling. Like I was just as entertained I was very entertained by Mercedes and Athena as a team versus Harley and Willow as much as I was a Blood and Guts match. Like, I'm not saying it was a better match, but I'm saying entertainment wise. So, usually a Blood and Guts type of match, which is basically war games, that's what it's their version of war games, is the
Right.
culmination of a feud, right? It's the culmination of, hey, we all hate each other. Now we're going to go. And after the winner wins and the loser loses, we go our separate ways and we start new stories. This was done differently, which is Blood and Guts was almost the starting point to the tag title feuds, right? Because you got clear cut, hey, we want those tag belts and we're going to do everything we can to get them and we're going to weaken our opponents and we're going to
Yep.
use this match to do that. So that was a little bit of a change for me because when I go into these matches, like, but that's how AEW does it. Because I think back to a year ago, we were together in Nashville, and and to the person, you see, I had to actually go to Nashville. We're not in the same house last week. The Hangman Swerve kind of feud kicked off at Blood and Guts, right? Like they kind of stared at each other and then they rekindled their feud. I guess I have to change my thinking that this is how AEW is going to use Blood and Guts going forward, which is it's going to start things, not end things, or it's going to
Accelerate.
keep things hot. Like Chris and Mercedes were in this match to weaken each other. The way they told the story, Chris wasn't really didn't worry about her team, and Mercedes didn't worry about her team. They both helped their team. They like, Mercedes brought belts into the ring and said, "Hey, use weapons," but they cared about each other. Their goal
Yeah.
was, I want to weaken my opponent. I want to get ahead. And then really the focus was all the other women for the tag belts, right? Because that's all the other women are trying to win the tag belts.
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah. Um,
Queen and Jamie are gone, but they weren't really
wasn't in the match
involved.
anymore. Yeah.
Huh? Yeah, yeah, they weren't involved. So the story was that Tony Storm and Mina are vying for the tag belts, and they used Tony Storm's love of Mina as a weakness to get her to submit because they were just beating the pulp out of Mina. They also isolated to get Chris out of the ring because Chris is clearly who they were worried about the most. They used Mercedes to do that. And Mercedes was almost like a tackling dummy. It's like, hey, strategy, you take the table bump, but we're going to lock her out of the cage and keep her out. So to me, they told a great story, and that's what I appreciate about this match more than anything else. The work is the work. Whether you
Yep.
like it or you don't, that's an opinion. What I like is the heels came across as legitimate working as a team. They had a strategy, they executed, they all had a hand in it. Mercedes had to help. Um, what's her name? I thought
Marina.
Marina Shafir, if you look at stock up, stock down, I thought Megan Bain, Marina Shafir, it came away much better out of this match than they did going into the match. I thought that the Mina Tony stuff was good because I feel like when Mina and Tony eventually break up and feud, this is going to be all part of the talking point. Um, I really appreciated how the Triangle of Terror, what are they called?
Triangle of Madness.
Triangle of Madness. They work very well as a unit. Like I love how they use Thekla and how skinny she is to get out of the cage and escape and use
Yeah.
like kind of thing. So I enjoyed the story that Tony Khan and the producers told. This is not a match I'm going to watch multiple times, but I enjoyed the match for what it was.
Yeah, no, I think you hit on a lot of it. I mean, it's not my cup of tea. I'm not in the camp of people that think it'd be cool if Mercedes, blades one day. That's not something I want Mercedes to have as many matches like she had against Chris and Hazuki, and that's That's what I'm looking for. Have matches in unique places with people you didn't think she'd ever wrestle. But I will say that I thought the psychology of this match was brilliant. The heels, I feel like the heels were all six women played a part, and the faces were six women who were trying to use their super teamness to win and didn't have a plan. Um, Mercedes bringing in the belts for everyone to use as a weapon. I think Mercedes coordinated throwing people out of the ring, and to your point, kind of uh, getting Chris stuck outside the ring. Both Julia and Thekla went through the hole on the side of the ring. Two things they did in this match to make it set apart from the men. They crawled out of a hole that was too small for a man to get through, and the Mina Tony dynamic would not have worked with men. And I love that on the first ever Blood and Guts match, they were like, what can we do that sets this apart psychology and storyline wise that the men will not be able to replicate? It won't make sense. And they found the perfect kind of our idea was Harley. Is it as big of an impact with Willow or Chris with Harley as it is with Tony and Mina in hindsight? No. I think we missed that because Mina wasn't originally part of the match. So I do wonder how much that changed what the finish was going to be. But um, I thought Megan stock up big time, Marina stock up big time. And I'll tell you what, Sky Blue is tough as shit. Like
I Blue, yeah.
everyone is the picture of her with the crimson mask. Um, Even Mick Foley was sitting at home like, gosh, that's a lot of blood. It was a lot. I will actually direct you to the spot with her and Jamie. They got the strongest table in history where not only did Jamie drop Sky on it with a power bomb, and if you watch it, she gets power bombed, break. Air goes out of her body, and if you watch her lips, she says "Oh f bomb," which I'll censor myself, but you can clearly hear her say like that hurt. And then Jamie jumps on her to try to break the table. And with the weight of both women, the table does not break. So I just felt like Blue made me a fan for life. Again, Jamie landed on her. I think if you watch, the referee checked on her, and um, it was almost like, man, she might not be part of the rest of this match because her ribs got crushed. And they gave her a minute, she laid there, but she got back in and played her part for the rest of the match. So just like an extreme level of toughness. Um, she's probably the most outspoken woman that she wanted to be involved in Blood and Guts and to come in and execute that. Um, I'm gonna throw something out there, and she's not like think moves or the way they wrestle. But knowing how like particular the AEW fan base is about originals and people who came up there, and they tend to throw their support behind it. I think if they springboard this match and tell the right story with Sky over the next couple of years, I'm not talking about next week, over the next couple of years, she's very young. She could build a Jeff Hardy like connection with the crowd where she's just like a favorite because there's just this DNA connection that they have with her. Not the way they wrestle, not ability in the ring, but just as a favorite where it's just like they're going to go hard for her regardless. I think that that's on the table there. Um, because I from our time covering AEW, I think the crowd's always kind of responded to her, and she kind of grew up. She's one of the youngest women that they signed, um, and I think she really had a moment on Wednesday, and I think you'll see the crowds responding to her further and further. The internet buzz for her was as high or higher than anyone coming out of that match for that fan base.
I think she's somebody who's gonna go, when they break up this group, she'll be the baby face, right? Like she'll be the one that they turn on, right? And I think that the crowd will be behind her. I like her a lot. I think she has a lot of potential, and she worked her tail off in this match. They all did. Like I think all the women, to me, they proved you give them the same platform as the men, they're going to produce. And I thought that, and not to discuss ratings again, I just thought the women's match was just a significantly better piece of business than the men's match.
Yep.
And I enjoyed it. And I think that if this is an annual thing, I just would ask that I don't think the women have to go super, super crazy anymore. Like, I think they pushed the envelope in this match. I don't know if I need to see it any more than this.
Yeah. Um, Having attended a Blood and Guts, I will also props to Tony. Um, this should be a two match or a three match card because it was very hard to watch the whole show last year in Nashville from the side of the ring when they weren't using it with the double ring. Um, I thought it was brilliant. You have the women's match, you have a Falls Count Anywhere match, and then you have a the men's Blood and Guts match. Because if you're going to have the two rings, regular stuff like promos and a regular match, you turn the arena into places where there are dead spots and bad seats. So I think this year, the way it looked on TV, the whole show was perfect. So there's no reason not to do it that way going forward. So shout out to the women. Uh, New ground again, breaking the glass ceiling, pun intended, on Tony Storm's face, like a mirror. And no, all 12 women, I think, came out of it better. I'm glad. Looks like there's some bumps and bruises. Hater lost some teeth on the chair spot that Megan just chucked at her. I don't need to see that again, probably.
Oh,
Things like that, to your
they do
point.
have a dentist on the roster.
They do have a dentist on the roster. So, shout out to the AEW women. I actually think that we have as much or more momentum as a division in AEW for the women than we've ever had. And if Tony can capitalize on it, um, I do think ratings are going to. I think he has some grace bought from more people watch Blood and Guts than had been watching
Yep.
Dynamite, and I think that you'll get another good rating this week. They've got Mercedes wrestling Red Velvet in the unification match for the ROH title. They've got two women's matches in the tag team tournament, so he's taking that momentum and booking the next show to continue the momentum, and women are a big part of it. So we call him out when he puts a crappy women's card out there. Um, so far, I really like what I'm seeing from him. Blood and Guts, the story, the way it was produced, and the multiple angles that are coming out of it. So keep it up, Tony Khan. It will help the ratings. We know women drive business.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
Gears. We did have a title change. I think a fairly surprising title change. You were advocating for this team to be, one of the GOAT runs ever last week, and by the time many of our listeners had heard that episode, they weren't the champions anymore.
What a
Charlexa
yeah.
lost the title to the Kabuki Warriors. We Kabuki Warriors might be the greatest women's tag team, bar none, WWE anything of all time, at least long term track record. So, what were your thoughts on that?
I thought the match was really good. I didn't need the title change. Like I
Yep.
thought that if this was all to set up war games, I don't get it. You could have Nia and Lash interfere in the match and, not flip the titles. Like I thought Charlexa was legitimately a must. Like they were doing something good as champions and they were putting a spotlight to all these other women. Let's be honest here. I love Asuka and I love Kyrie, but them getting the belts is really an avenue for Rhea and Io to get the belts. That's all it is, right? It's
Yeah.
not, this isn't going to be that Asuka and Kyrie are going to go now to NXT and they're going to go have these feuds with all these different groups of women. That's not what's going to happen. Clearly, Asuka and Kyrie got the belts because they want Rhea and Io to win the belts. And that's what this is. And
Yeah.
I like tag belts being used for that purpose. I just don't think that it serves up Charlotte and Alexa legitimately. Forget about, they were doing something that is needed in that tag division. They were bringing other women spotlight. And I thought
Yeah.
that a Nia Lash feud for the titles with Charlotte and Alexa, and I still think Nia and Lash should have been the team that beat Charlotte and Alexa, not Asuka and Kyrie.
No, I agree. I want to be wrong. Let me preface this. I want to be wrong. It feels a little here damn to me. I think Asuka and Kyrie are doing such good work that the the writers probably realize that them getting a title run of some sort out of it is necessary and earned. Um, and unfortunately, the part I want to be wrong about is you and I said, if they need to insert a change agent at the top title, Asuka probably deserves another run with the top title. Her heel work has been incredible. Um, Obviously having um Kyrie in on it, uh, and getting a belt is something that she has earned as well. And this is going to turn off into a big Kyrie babyface moment, as it should. But yeah, I don't know. It felt like the Charlexa thing didn't need to have them lose the belts. I like that they lost the belts without any angst towards each other. That's new and fresh. Everyone's waiting for that shoe to drop. I don't even know if we need that. I think they've been so good together. If you're going to do that, you better have a plan for Alexa when she's a heel. Because I think the Asuka Kyrie thing is clearly going to be them breaking up and us getting like a Virgil Ted DiBiase moment
Yeah.
with Kyrie, which I'm all for. So, yeah, interesting. The match was great. If they continue to let Asuka and Kyrie wrestle these great matches like Charlexa was doing, great. Um, I did love the layering of Charlotte not immediately jumping into being on a team with
That
Rhea.
was
I thought
mhm.
that was good. That's human storytelling. Like, no, I'm not. We're not friends. I'm not going to trust you in a cage. Like that. I thought that was really, really good. So, um, WWE long established track record of struggling to have War Games or Survivor Series make sense, and they change the direction of what they're doing because it's almost like they realize too late, oh, we've got to have alliances in 3 weeks. And that's kind of what they did here, in my opinion. They oftentimes they don't have enough women or face women established in each other's orbit a year for War Games to make sense. And so that's what's happening here. You've got Io and have had nothing to do with Alexa and Charlotte for years, truthfully. And so it's like they're trying to bring it all together. That is the one thing that I wish that they would fix. Uh, Blood and Guts. What worked about it is both groups had like women that kind of had, at the core had interacted with each other, were on the same page, and or were at least like Chris and Willow had been broken up a while, but had at least somewhat stopped fighting and just like, I don't trust you, but it's whatever. Um, I think the WWE women are the best in the world at telling some of the backstage stories. They just need to let them do it more often and start earlier for these matches.
Yeah, I understand that they have this pay-per-view called War Games. So they have to have a men's cage match and a women's cage match. But quite honestly, to me, War Games is the finality of something. And I like, to me, you could make a case that Rhea Io versus Asuka Kyrie for the tag belts in a cage, that makes sense.
100%.
That one makes sense. That's a personal feud. That's a personal feud. Charlotte and Alexa, Lash and Nia, they just started feuding. And if you're going to say, well, yeah, they cost us the titles, then you have a revenge tag match. So I don't know if the War Games vehicle is the right one. And then, every year now Rhea Ripley has become, Regal War Games. Like she says it and everybody goes crazy. But I like so let's speaking of heel turns, and we quickly want to touch on this. Nikki Bella turned heel in the most telegraphed thing of all time.
Yeah.
Everybody saw coming. Um, I think this is exactly what Stephanie needs. I think she needs a true villain to fight. Not every single Stephanie match can be, I want to be better than you. And that's it. It's not going to work in wrestling. And, Stephanie is very lucky that she's very over. But if we're being honest, her title reign so far has nothing to sneeze about. Like, it's not her fault.
Right.
It's just not been booked correctly. So I'm hoping Nikki Bella with a microphone in her hand, and I'm gonna assume Nikki Bella is gonna be like, "Hey, new person. I've been the gold standard. Whether it was for the women, whether it was for Hispanic women, I have been the star. And now you're coming in and you're taking or and I know they have to be careful here. But could Nikki Bella cut a promo like this? For years, we were told that all of us divas don't care about in-ring wrestling and showing off our looks. Yet, Stephanie, you're getting praised for everything we got criticized for. Could that also be an interesting talking point that Nikki Bella could bring up? Like, hey, the double standard here.
Yeah, I think Nikki's good enough on the mic, and we've talked about it. That's almost a punch at the crowd, maybe a necessary punch at the crowd, right? Um, I'm just gonna say it. Stephanie, say what you want. The the fire that ignited that brought her to WWE was how incredible she was in the ring, and it had little to none to do with the move that everyone goes crazy about, and it had to do with like the extreme quality of work that she does in the ring, and I want that to be highlighted, especially now that she's champion. So um, I would like them to use the Devil's Kiss as part of the narrative, if only just for us to move away from it at some point because it gets called out. I would actually love that. I don't think that's going to happen. I think WWE, like, you ever play someone in Mortal Kombat and they beat you with the same move? You play someone in Mortal Kombat and they're beating you with the same move over and over again. That's WWE finds something that works and they hit that button over and over and over again. So I'm not holding my breath. I do think Nikki can give us a different layer than what we've seen from Stephanie. She's needed to face a heel for quite a while now, and I'm glad that she's going to be getting the chance to do that. Um, the other heel turn that they've done, I think, is working out very well. Also, I think Jade, her
Yes.
presentation as champion and her promos have been much better, more of a fit for what she brings to the table. Um, so it will be interesting to see how they book her matches as a heel. But really, really elevated her TV presentation, which was already, she looks like a star. We've always talked about that, but now like the look matches the intention behind who she is.
Okay. Yeah, I think Jade's been great as a heel champion. She should be this destroyer. She should be, just running people over. That's the perfect presentation for her. Back to Stephanie Vacour. What people forget that night when she fought Mercedes, the match that really put her on the map is it was
Yep.
how great she was in the ring. It wasn't, oh my goodness, like this is this vision. She's just like this breathtakingly beautiful woman. It was actually her work in the ring that won everybody over. And I really do hope that WWE goes back to that, but I doubt they will because she's just become such a star in these other areas for them the Netflix minutes, all that stuff, that I don't know if they can take the genie and put it back in the bottle at this point, unless they
Yeah, I
kind of
mean, her first match with Mercedes at Resurgence, Mercedes, it was pre-injury. It was the night she got injured, actually. They were incredible. Everything was fast and crisp, and you could say that Mercedes was the lead and Stephanie kept up, right? And that was shocking in and of itself. Their next match at Forbidden Door, in Mercedes, it was her second or third match, I think, third or fourth match off the injury. Um, and the layout of the match. Anyone watching that match, that match was to put Stephanie on a pedestal. And not only did she live up to it, you could say she was the sharpest woman in the ring that night. She was one of the sharpest performers on the card that night. She jumped off the screen. Her work jumped off the screen, how crisp and snug and tight everything was as a worker. Um, and damn it if Triple H and Shawn didn't, try to sign her within 24 hours of that. So that's kind of how they presented her in NXT, the Devil's Kiss. The Booker T thing really derailed that because at first it was how good she was and how dominating she was, and her stuff with Julia was reminiscent of the types of matches she was having with Mercedes. So I'd like for them to get back to that for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and let's hope the Nikki Bella feud really brings that out of her, because I think that Stephanie is in dire need of a string of good matches, back to back to back. That would be good for her. Um, so I know we have a very exciting top five, and before we do the top five, we talk about this week in the world of women's wrestling, and I kind of want to talk about women's wrestling this week, but in a different lens. So this past week, November 16th, I think, no, November 13th to be exact, is the day that Eddie Guerrero passed away. In 2005 in a hotel in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Now, Eddie Guerrero is from the city that I currently call my home, which is El Paso, Texas. Everybody knows that. This past Thursday, the city did have an Eddie Guerrero Day finally, and there will be a street named after him finally, after a lot of us have been kind of poking. And the reason to discuss Eddie Guerrero is important this week is because Eddie Guerrero is very influential to women's wrestling, because whether it's Mercedes Moné, whether it's Stephanie Vacour, whether it is um oh my goodness, like there's so many women that looked up to Eddie Guerrero, because remember, Eddie Guerrero was not always the biggest wrestler. He was not always the strongest wrestler, but he, had to swim in this world of sharks. And I think the women kind of sometimes probably feel that way as it relates to the men. So I
Yep.
think for Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio, and a lot of them breaking that glass ceiling allowed um what the women do to be more accepted. And he was such a big influence on, again, there is no Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné, if there is no Eddie Guerrero. And I
Right.
think, just to honor him, even though we do a show about women's wrestling, would be valid, because he's had such a major influence on a lot of the women that we, you know, love and discuss and revere. I mean, EO's favorite wrestler is Rey Mysterio. Well, you can't be a Rey Mysterio fan if you weren't at either you were an Eddie Guerrero fan or you hated Eddie Guerrero, but
Right.
they're kind of symbiotic.
Yeah, he was, a lot of the time when someone reached the top level, even if they were a smaller worker, Bret Hart is someone I think of. He was a normal kind of size guy in the tag team division, and they essentially told him, "You want to be world champion, you got to bulk up." I'm not saying Eddie didn't bulk up. In fact, unfortunately, he bulked up too much, and that's part of what happened. But um, Eddie played the David role, and it never really kind of went away. Uh, you know, his biggest match that most people remember, in WWE against Brock. You remember the Ray matches and you remember the Brock Lesnar match. and he was such a good David. I think you're exactly right. He's like a muse for women's wrestling who you know, working from under as the undersized, plucky underdog. And then the part of it that he did that Ray never did was, you know what? Not only that, but I'll lie, cheat, and steal to win. Again, as a muse for women's wrestling and some of the heel work that went into it. So, yeah, man, 20 years. What is it? Is it 20 years? Is it
Yeah. 20 years.
20 years?
Yeah.
Crazy.
20 years. Um, and a lot of that 2015 Sasha Banks run that we revere, that was Eddie Guerrero. A
Yeah,
lot of the
playing.
great stuff she did was Eddie Guerrero. I mean, because Eddie, the thing that I've always loved about when Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné is allowed to be a full-on nasty heel, she is one of the most entertaining wrestlers ever. I don't sometimes feel like they push that enough in AEW.
Yeah,
It's like they're lost. But like when I watched her match with Persephone in the Arena Mexico in CMLL, that's Eddie Guerrero. Like that night,
that's the
I,
greatest heel on the planet.
I saw
Yeah,
Eddie Guerrero. Yeah.
yeah,
And if you go on and go back and this is a reference, Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, Halloween Havoc, 1997. Probably the best match ever in the history of WCW. Actually, no, it's not probably. I think it is. Go and watch that match, and watch the heel work that Eddie Guerrero does. Ray had a complete bodysuit that had the mask attached to the suit, and Eddie ripped half of it where you still couldn't see Ray's face, but it was coming undone. Just the heel work he did in that match, it was very reminiscent of what Sasha Banks and Bailey, or Sasha Banks did to Bailey in the Brooklyn match. Same
yeah.
atmosphere, electricity. Yeah. So rest in peace, Eddie Guerrero. Gone but not forgotten. And, again, to me, El Paso's favorite son. And I am thankful that finally he gets a street named after him in this city. So that was this week
Well
in wrestling.
deserved. All right. So, top five.
Yes.
Um, this one is another impossible task, probably more impossible, right? Top five women's matches ever that did not occur in WWE. So that includes NXT, obviously. Um, just like last week, there's 20 that deserve to be in the top five. You've got everything that's happened in AEW. You've got all the TNA stuff over the years. You got all the independent women's stuff that's happened in the United States over the years. And oh, by the way, just a treasure trove of some of the most amazing matches you've ever seen in your life occurring in Japan. Not
Mhm.
for the last 10 years, not for the last 20 years, not even for the last 30 years, for the last 40 years. So, a daunting task. I did put some rules around it to try to get down to five, but I think that you bring such a level of history to the podcast, which everyone appreciates. To make my list, I had to watch a lot of matches that I had never watched in full, and or, um, I definitely didn't watch them live, and I don't pretend that I was back watching these matches when they happened. So I'm really excited to hear your list. I hope I have come up with a respectful list, but you've got to kick this one off, my friend.
Okay. So on this whiteboard here, I have the top five non-WWE matches, but I have changed the category a little bit. I'm kidding. I'm going to turn my board around. I'm not going to show everybody the matches, but I I think, on this show we celebrate, the greatness of women's wrestling. And I'm going to be honest here, there's only one greatest women's wrestler of all time, and it's Minami Toyota. So my list is going to be exclusively my favorite Minami Toyota matches, which also qualifies because she never worked in WWE. So we'll start with the honorable mentions before I get to number five. So my honorable mentions, and I will make sure that I tweet the descriptions of these matches and I will embed the links as best as I can. So my honorable mentions, I'm going to give three matches. 1995, Manami Toyota versus Kyoko Inoue, 60-minute draw. Now, yes, it's a daunting task to watch a 60-minute match. It is. But this match is the precursor to Shawn Michaels Bret Hart. The only difference is this actually ended in a draw. There was no overtime period. There must have been a winner. It was just a draw. It also won, we talked about the newsletter earlier, Wrestling Observer Match of the Year in 1995. My number two honorable mention match is Manami Toyota versus Aja Kong 1995. This is not my favorite Aja Kong Manami Toyota match. That match actually is on my top five list. But this match I would highly recommend. It's the Iron Woman match to Brooklyn. So
Cool.
it's a great sequel. And number three, Manami Toyota. Oh, sorry. Versus Toyoshi Yamada. Now, again, this is the part one in 1992. The part two match is the match that's going to make my list, but this is the part one. And just to give people some criteria on her resume, from 1991 to 1995, she had 17 five-star matches that Dave rated. I don't know if we'll ever see a run like that again in women's wrestling, simply because I think Dave, in his later years, has become a lot more, as you eloquently put it, and people ran with your calculation, the woman's tax and the Mercedes tax. So I'm not saying a woman isn't capable of doing this, because I do think Mercedes is capable of it, and I think Io is, and I think Saya is. I don't know if it'll ever be graded the same, but
Right.
it's a remarkable run. So let me start with number five. Number five, Manami Toyota versus Kyoki Inoue, 1992 for the IWA title. This is about a 30-minute match, and it is fast and furious and heavy hitting. And what I loved about this match is Manami Toyota is literally, when you watch classic in WWE Sasha Banks and the term ragdoll, or the term, selling like rent is due, go back and watch this match. This is where a lot of the Mercedes selling comes from. This match. She got beat up from pillar to post. So that's my number five match.
I think you should do your whole list because I didn't do a whole Manami Toyota list, and so I think the back and forth. It's
Okay.
better if you just give your list and then I'll go through mine.
Okay. Number four, Minami Toyota versus Tashihio Yamada. Hair versus hair 1992 IWA title. Again, something that happens in Mexico and Japan a lot is hair versus hair matches. Does not really happen in the United States. This was revolutionary because women were doing it and women were involved. And, spoiler alert, Manami Toyota did not get her hair cut. So you know that Yamada did. But it was
Right.
great. And what was great about it is you could see the pain in Manami Toyota's eyes that she had to beat this opponent to get it to where she had to lose her hair. So that was really, really good. Number three is a tag match. This is literally like, if you take the four best women's wrestlers in the world right now, and whatever the list is it Mercedes, Io, Saya, Tony Storm, Mercedes, Io, Bianca, whatever. This match is that equivalent in 1994. You had Minami Toyota teaming with Aja Kong, one of her all-time blood rivals, against Bull Nakano and Koyoka Inoue, 1994. This was just a tag match. It was amazing. I highly recommend everybody go seek it out. It's just the four best women's wrestlers in the world at the time in a tag match, and it felt big and it had stakes. Number two, I think Manami Toyota's best all-time opponent is Akira Hokuto. 1995 Destiny Climax. This match is amazing. And honestly, this match might have been my number one. I had to watch this match and the number one match three times each just to pick which one I liked better. But this is my number two match. So 1995 Destiny Climax, Manami Toyota versus Akira Hokuto. Highly recommend you seek out every Hokuto Toyota match. By the way, all of their matches have gotten 5 stars against each other, just to point that out. Number one, this is this is Brooklyn for me before Brooklyn. This is the one woman's match that if somebody were to tell me pre North American women's wrestling boom, go watch a women's match and tell me why you love women's wrestling, I'd have picked this match. Manami Toyota versus Aja Kong, 1994. Now, here's the interesting thing about this match. It's in what's called the top women tourney, and it was round one. So this was the opening round of that match. And here's the other thing. Aja Kong was the champion, but she was still in the tournament to prove she was the best woman. This match is spectacular. From the moment the bell rings, they go nuts on each other. And they had more false finishes in this match than Ricky Steamboat and and Macho Man. So, as somebody who remembers this, this was, I think, maybe the second or third Minami Toyota match I ever watched in my life. And I remember just on the edge of my seat, like I'm watching it on VHS, like, oh my God, there's the end. Nope, didn't come, didn't come, didn't come. And finally, when the ending happened, it was like, whoa, it just happened. We used to rewind this match at my house a lot in my basement and watch it. This match was unbelievable. I highly recommend it. 1994 top women tournament, Minami Toyota Ajikan.
November 20th, 1994, if I
Yeah.
recall.
Mhm.
So that's this week in women's wrestling a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I love that you went through all that because I think that that's, obviously most of our listeners probably certainly didn't experience that in real time. Um, and I'm sitting here fairly proud, and I think you'll be proud once I get through my list. I did watch four of your five top five. I didn't watch the tag match because I just knew I wasn't, for my list, I wasn't going to put a tag match on there. Um, and then I watched a couple of your honorable mentions too. Um, my bias sets in
Mhm.
on my list a little bit because I didn't make a rule where a person can't be there twice. I have someone twice, but I also didn't want to be fake. It's kind of like what you said last week is like, I know how I felt about a lot of these matches in the moment or at least around the moment.
Yeah.
Um, but I also wanted to be true to history. And so I did do some studying and I tried to diversify my list. So um, I think I at least got part of it right. My honorable mentions, Tam Nakano and Saya Kamatani from earlier this year. Um, that's a really, really great match. They probably have other matches that they have that could be honorable mentions or on this list, either together or with other people. That was the one that I chose because I was aware of it when it happened and I watched it the week it happened. So for me as a fan, that's the one that registers with me. And I wanted to represent them. I got Tony Storm versus Mariah May, honorable mention, the Hollywood ending. Um, Great match. Willow Nightingale versus Chris Statlander, their street fight, a match I love and watched live, and again felt something about in the moment, so I wanted to call that one out. I didn't want to call this one out originally because this person's been weird on Twitter lately, but we're not going to disqualify her for that. But Awesome Kong versus Gail Kim, no DQ, I felt like was the best TNA representation I could come up with. Um, And so I have them as an honorable mention. Okay, my top five. There are so many women who deserve to be on this list. I tried to do my best and I cheated a little bit. And I thought of women who I know have done great things outside of WWE. And I'm like, man, I don't have enough spots on the list. What if they fought each other? They did. Let's go watch that match. Okay, that's okay. They fought each other 6 times. What's the best one? And so that's kind of my process that I went through this week. So, number five, I did not watch this match live. I watched it this week in preparation for this, but I love the match. Kana versus Mako Satomura from 2011 was my favorite match of theirs. Kana is Asuka, for those who don't know. So I felt like that was deserving of number five on the list. They have several good matches together. That was what I felt to be the best one. Um, Really, really great match, and I had a lot of fun kind of going back and seeing what Asuka did in Japan. Um, you know, she didn't reach the. You've said this on the pod before. She didn't reach the level of stardom that Io did over there. But she was the first. She was a trailblazer and being the first to really come over here in a while and break ground. But the work was incredible. Um, so I saw some really good stuff, and so people should research that if they want to know more about how Asuka came up. And Mako Satomura is it's a joke she's not in that Hall of Fame like we talked about earlier. She finished just ahead of Mercedes, I think, and she should be in already.
Mhm.
Number four, I wanted to get an AEW match on the list, and it's my favorite AEW match of all time, and the timing is perfect. Mercedes Moné versus Chris Statlander at Full Gear.
Part one.
Um, part one.
Okay.
I go back and forth. Part one was a better story. Part two was a better AEW match. Part two fit what AEW does better, but part one was you could have done part one in WWE. You could have done part one on the Indies. You could have done part one in Japan. It would have fit anywhere. Part two was more of a spot, you know, as much of a spot fest as you're going to see about out of Mercedes. I still think that she grounded it a little bit, but part one is the more classically great match. Number three, I had a lot of fun watching these ladies wrestle each other a bunch of times. They wrestled last month. Part three, I have Io Sky, Io Shirai actually versus Mayu Iwatani. Which match do you think I picked?
I'm going to guess. I don't know. I don't see you picking the 43-minute one. Is that the match you picked?
2016.
Yeah, okay, that is the
Yeah.
match. Okay.
Yep. Um, it was easier for me to realize that again, it's kind of like how I've adapted to watching AEW. You have to fit the card. And so when I haven't watched Japanese and Joshi wrestling in a while, and I see EO in WWE, the non-selling or the things I complain about sometimes stick out more. But when you're
Yeah.
watching all these matches back to back to back, it's how the wrestling is done. And so I was able to appreciate that match more than maybe I normally would if it just dropped onto my TV after I watched the WWE match. But those two are two of the greatest of all time, and so I wanted them to make the list. Um, I had to have my number one be a match I watched live. Manami Toyota, as you put, could be the first 10 matches on this list, the first 15 matches on this list. Um, she had to be on my list, but being true to myself, I couldn't put her in the number one spot because this was all research to find it. But you will be proud of me. Guess what my match is? Right here. Oh, you can't see it.
I think it's the
Manami
match,
Toyota,
the one with
Manami Toyota versus Aja Kong
yeah.
1994.
Yeah.
Yes. So at least the match I picked, and we did not discuss this ahead of time. The match I picked was your number
It's
one.
yeah, it is. Okay, so what did you like about this match?
So for me, I researched all the matches that you went through, and I think it won't surprise anyone on here. The dynamic of again, David versus Goliath, the way that she mixes with Aja Kong, I could watch the two of them wrestle over and over and over again. the bumping, the selling. It is it is Mercedes, right? Like that is what I appreciate about it. And I do really believe that if I watch this match live, it would still be one of my three favorite matches ever. If I watched it live, it might be my first favorite match ever. When you can get lost in a match that you know what's going to happen and it doesn't matter and you're still on the edge of your seat, that's what's so great about it. And these two are incredible together. I personally, because of the dynamics, I appreciate the Aja Kong Manami matches are my favorite matches, all of them. Those were the ones that sucked me in every time.
I'm glad you picked this match. I think this is the match that of all the Minami Toyota matches, it's the one that's the easiest to show a new generation of wrestling
Yeah.
fans. And say, you love Mercedes Monet or you love Io Sky or you love Asuka. Well, there's the woman that inspired all of them, and that's Minami Toyota. And here, let me show you why. And if you watch this match, it clicks right away. You're like, okay, because when you watch this match, this is Nia Jax, Sasha Banks, right? Like this is that match. It's
But if
just
Nia Jax was also one of the
yes.
best wrestlers in the
Yes.
world, right?
Nia Jax, as much as she's improved, is not Aja Kong, and she should be the first person to tell you that. And while I do think Mercedes is on the level of Minami Toyota, Aja Kong is herself on the level of Minami Toyota and Mercedes Monet. So when you put that together with the David versus Goliath, which is why, including Uncle Dave thought Willow Mercedes had a chance before she injured her ankle to be one of the all-time great matches because even though nobody looks at Willow as a Goliath, she is very big and strong and very can do the things. But the thing
It's a
about
little
this
bit of why Mercedes Chris works so well too.
this is, you know what? I have watched this match, I don't know, 100 times in my life. And I'm still to this day, every time, spoiler alert for people, Aja Kong wins this match, it shocks me.
Yeah.
Like it's still because, and now looking back, of course she's gonna win. She's the champion going into round one of a tournament. If she loses, that makes your champion look so bad. But it's like, oh, she won. And every time she wins, I'm always shocked by it. Like, oh, she won. Like, there's a part of me that wants to see Minami Toyota win this match, but her losing actually probably makes the match even better because that's when she got a chance to beat her in 95. It kind of told the full story. I knew of the matches I sent you. I was like, this will be the match that he likes the most because I think this is the closest to a modern, like this could be a WWE match. Like they could work that
Yeah.
exact match in WWE and I think people would go crazy over it. But it was way
Yeah.
ahead of its time. Way ahead of its time.
Way ahead of its time. Yeah, no, and I think when you get it sent to you as a Minami Toyota match, that is why I was actually shocked when Aja Kong won that one. And I was like, because I watched everything in order. I didn't want to watch anything out of order. So I decided ahead of time, okay, if Io, Mayu, I got to watch start here, here, here. Asuka and Mako, Minami's matches, I watched them in chronological order. I did break up, like I watched all the Aja Kong matches and kind of segmented that way. But I loved it. I will have it in my rotation and continue to watch it. If you haven't watched it, watch it. And then my number one, because the night it happened, took my breath away, and I wish I took screenshots of our group chat. We were literally like, "Holy shit, was that better than Brooklyn?" And it's
Yeah. And
Mercedes Moné
Hazuki, correct?
Hazuki, correct. We in our group chat, there's we got a couple different chats going, but the oldest one, and it's got several other people in it. We were like, holy shit, was that better? Was that better than Brooklyn? And by the next day we're like, okay, I wish the crowd was bigger. The crowd certainly wasn't as hot as Brooklyn. It was a hot crowd. very very brightly lit arena, almost in a back. Like you could see people's facial expressions in the background. I felt like I was watching Chicago Bulls, Utah Jazz, where you could see everyone afraid above Michael Jordan's about to hit a shot. Kind of like the House of Glory show last night. Like just the ring wasn't the only thing lit; everything was. But this was the best wrestled match of Mercedes' career, in my opinion. And I also think that the match turned into something it wasn't planned to be because it was so good and so hot and going so well. I think Mercedes and Hazuki did some things they didn't plan on. I think the match was a little longer than they planned on it being. And all of those things are in my heart of why I like wrestling. Like the idea that Mercedes had her kick out of the moneymaker because it just was going to bring it to a level further. All those things add up to my favorite non WWE match of all time. And what's crazy is this Mercedes Chris Full Gear match and this Mercedes Hazuki match happen within like 3 weeks of each other.
Yeah.
And they are legitimately, whether you agree with my list or not, they're two of the greatest women's matches outside of WWE of all time. And some people like World's End, which happened 2, 3 weeks later too. Just a godly run. And the best modern day women's run um on the independent or outside of WWE we've ever seen, besides what you mentioned of that 5 year and 17 5-star match run.
Other than Manami Toyota, I think Mercedes has the best run of any women's wrestler ever, and I think it's two separate runs. I think it's the 2015 run, and then it's this run. But the truth is, if they never had the second Chris match, I think I would love if I were to do my list from last year, like I had, this is the best match from last year, Mercedes Suzuki. Then I had, Utami, Io. Then I had Mercedes Chris 1. Then I had Io Bailey. But I think if Chris Mercedes 2 never happened, I would have put Mercedes Chris above Io versus Utami because I think having a part two and that two being so good, it kind of took away because now it's like, well,
You
which one
split
do
the
you?
votes. You split the
Yeah,
votes.
yeah,
Yeah.
kind of split the votes. But full disclosure, I was gonna do a list like yours where I was gonna sprinkle in some Manami Toyota, then I was gonna do some AEW, then I was gonna do a TNA or whatever. But then I thought about it. I have been asked multiple times for a couple of years now. Everybody talks about Manami Toyota. I talk about Manami Toyota, but I never really gave people matches to go watch. Like I have said, well, her versus Hokuto is good and her versus Bull Nakano is good, but I never said this match on this day on this year. So when I was doing my
Yeah.
list, I said, you know what? This is an opportunity for me to give Manami Toyota, her flowers. Because again, don't ask me. You don't like my opinion. Go ask Mercedes.
Yeah.
Go ask Io. The point is, then I said I could let me just make a Manami Toyota list because I could legitimately put five of her matches as my favorite non-WWE matches, and it could work. But let's be honest here, Mercedes Suzuki, our listeners have watched that match probably 20 times. Miko Io Mayu, Mercedes Chris, um, Utami Io. All these matches are modern day classics, and I think our listeners have probably already seeked them out and watched them. I mean, you could have put Mercedes Stephanie 1 on this list. You could have put Mercedes Stephanie 2, right?
Yeah.
But I want everybody who listens to this show to go back and really at least watch some of the Manami Toyota matches that I pointed out because, again, if you love Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks, and I do think she is the spitting daughter of Manami Toyota. If you watch Mercedes wrestle, you see a lot of Manami Toyota in her, a lot. It's
Yep.
you wouldn't realize it, but then when you watch the two side by side, even their physique resembles each other. Mercedes is a little bit more tone and a little bit more defined, but very thin, very, but fierce, right? Like Mercedes,
Yep.
when she punches you, you feel like she's legitimately tough. Well, same with Manami Toyota. So I wanted to do my list that way. I think you have an excellent list. Honestly, if I were to combine my two lists, my list would be a lot like yours. I think Mercedes Suzuki, in my opinion, is the best singles match ever that doesn't involve Manami Toyota. I don't think Io has a better singles match. I don't think Miko has a better singles match. I don't think um, Stephanie, whoever. I think Mercedes Suzuki, in my humble opinion, is the best non-Manami Toyota wrestled one-on-one match of all time. I think it's that good. It is a masterpiece. I love that match more than I love Brooklyn as a match. Brooklyn has everything else that makes it better, but like the WrestleMania three-way, I think is like I like that match more than Mercedes Suzuki because of the stakes and the stage and how they hit every move and all that. But man, for a one-on-one title defense match, Mercedes Suzuki is a professional wrestling clinic. It's
Yep.
perfect. It's a great
I
match.
rewatched it this week, and it's so good, and it's as good or better than you remember it. So
It is.
I had to be true to kind of my fandom with my number one, but I also enjoyed expanding my fandom, and we definitely think everyone else should do that as. So we had a lot to talk about on this show. We appreciate you guys for sticking with us through it. Um, the show gets longer when great things are happening in women's wrestling. So it's always fun when we have so much to talk about. And you know what? You probably will point out a thing or two that we missed. Um, the one thing off the top of my head I'll say real quick is Maya World and Hyan were on AEW again this weekend. There's a grassroots momentum about them getting signed. Everyone's ready for that all elite graphic. So Tony Khan, Maya World, and Hyan, let's sign them. Uh, they'll make your they'll make your women's league and your TV better. So let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah, please sign them.
It is the balance sheet bowl today. I don't think we
Yes.
have a whole lot to say except for a fake good luck to each other.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't think we need to lie to each other and pretend like
Right.
we want the other team to win. I think, you, it doesn't matter how your team wins as long as they win. And I think that's all we each care about, right? Like if your
That is
team
all we
wins
each care about.
10-7, you don't care. If my team wins 3-0, I don't care, right? A win is a win. And it's a game that people have wanted to see for 2 years. So at least I'm happy they get to see it today. Sunday Night Football World will be watching. It'll probably be the highest rated game this year, other than Thanksgiving game, which is a cheat code game. So,
I think it
um,
will be the highest rated game.
yeah, I think it's going to be the highest rated game of the year. I'm looking forward to it. I know you and your dad will be watching it together.
We
But for
will.
everybody, enjoy football. This episode will be posted tomorrow. And, next week we will have our full gear recap.
Yep. Full gear recap. And update on where War Games is headed, Red Velvet versus Mercedes Moné to unify the ROH TV title, and more developments in the AEW Women's Tag Tournament. So, with that, thank you all for listening as always. Remember to like and follow on the streaming service of your preference. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.